I think we're live. Well,
Hey, hello everybody, and welcome to the 100 and blah, 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 blah.
114.
Yes, welcome to episode 114. That voice you just heard is one of your hosts, Owen Adams, and the other host is me. I'm Mary Poppins, y'all. No, my name is Jonathan Cadotte, and you are listening to Those Are Biscuits, a weekly transatlantic pop culture podcast. We talk about movies and video games and comics and television shows and books sometimes, and it's a good time. So
It's a real good time.
Strap in, enjoy yourself.
Tune in, live people who must already be listening to the show to hear that instruction to tune in.
Tune in your minds, man. Tune in your mind. But lay some truth on you.
Remember what the dormouse said. Squeak, 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 squeak. That's what they say, right?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yes, that's what I heard. The word on the street. Exactly with that many syllables. What? Sorry?
Yeah. For those of you who might be new to the show, we are doing a live stream, and we're also recording for a later podcast. So if you're listening to this as a podcast, you might hear us refer to the audience a few times and reference some questions that's coming from our live stream. If you ever want to tune in yourself, we stream every Monday, 3:30 Central Standard Time or 9:30 Greenwich Mean Time.
Pretty much. We will be doing a few changes going forward, as we're actually going to be using this as our main source for the audio from now on, because the ones we've been doing have been turning out pretty well from when we actually lost the files, and it's easier, it's faster, and it means we can actually work more efficiently while we're recording it. It's actually just easier to get the show down the first time. So you might hear a change in how the audio sounds after this episode, but hopefully it won't be too bad.
Yeah. So, sorry.
Teething problems. We sound like we're in a new studio. Hi, Steve. How are you today?
Oh, don't give me that look, Sandra. Don't give me that look.
And we're here as the parade is working past the corner of 5th and Main. That's a street I've decided exists in the city outside our glamorous studio.
I imagine it does. Yeah. Well, how will we get right into this? What you been up to, man?
I have been playing a lot of Destiny, basically. I made fun of you, and my voice cracked then because I'm sad about it, not because I'm thirsty. I made fun of you for your love of Destiny because it got a lot of stick when it came out, Destiny, I think, mostly for its business model. But I've been playing it and liking it. I think I've settled into a thing with Destiny, which is, if I'd paid £50 for it when it first came out, and it had the amount of content in that it has, with the amount of story and structure to it, I might feel a bit shortchanged. But I paid for the vanilla disc 3 years in for a fraction of the price it cost new, and that lets you focus on the good things. I know price, you should always go by, really, to be fair, by what they wanted to charge you for it, you know? But it is hard to get away from the fact that when you go in at a really low investment, it's a really satisfying game. It's beautiful, the gameplay loop is fun. The criticism that it is low on real, substantive, meaty content for a big-budget game is accurate. But the game that is there is so much fun, I think. And I want to get in on the ground floor with Destiny 2, and that means going back and covering the main campaign and eventually getting the DLC and doing those 2 packs. So yeah, I'm going through it. I'm a warlock. I really like it. I'm of the opinion that when you really get into that game and it plays to its strengths, there isn't really a shooter that feels like it out there. So yeah.
And that's what I really liked about it when I first played it, is that once you start to really get into the meat of the game and start doing not just the quests, but like the strike missions, and if you ever get as far as like the raids, that's a whole different monster in itself.
Well, I think you can't actually do raids in vanilla anymore. I could be wrong, but I feel like most of the raids are actually locked out unless you're of a certain level now that you need Age of Steel to hit. Not Age of Steel, oh god, what's it called?
Iron.
Rise of Iron, not Rise of Iron.
Rise of Iron.
What's the one before Rise of Iron? The big Taken King. I think you need Taken King to access a lot of content that you used to have, which I can see the people who are upset about that. If you bought vanilla and you never wanted to buy the DLC, actually losing a bit of your game is a bitter pill to swallow. But again, as someone who's coming in at the end for a very low price, I don't really mind, you know? But I know there's stuff you just don't have access to as much anymore. But I'm planning on picking up that DLC anyway, so... So you were in on the ground floor. What did you think of it when it was just vanilla Destiny? I remember you were kind of into it, right?
Yeah, no, I was way into it. My experience was a little bit different because I managed to talk a friend into buying it as well, and we had a mutual friend who also bought it. Which
I did the same thing. When we were picking it up for £5, I bought it with a friend on the arrangement that we would play it together.
So we actually played the entirety of the story campaign together,
right.
Which was nice. It worked out real well, but also the matchmaking was just fine. It worked perfectly.
Yeah, and, I don't find that too much of a problem when it comes up in the strikes. You know, it's pretty smooth. Mm-hmm. It takes a while to matchmake in the Crucible, I think.
Well, I imagine for you it would be because just being vanilla, everyone
and it being so late.
I'm gonna assume like 70%, if not more, of the people who are still playing Destiny have got the expansions.
Oh, sure. I agree that I totally
what
accept.
I'm trying to tell you, Owen, is that you're a loser.
I totally accept right off the bat. Destiny is an MMO, even though they try to pretend it isn't. And
you know, I think at first they're all like, "Oh, it's this epic," but they leaned real hard into the MMO thing pretty quick when they realized that's what people liked.
The only difference between Destiny and an MMO is it doesn't have one single persistent world. Really, that's literally it. It is an MMO. You know, you are running around areas, and other players are running around them too, in their own time. And the only division is loading screens. And I totally accept you're not really supposed to play those without the expansions.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it, and I've always toyed with going back to it, and because I don't have the expansions either. I never... My time with Destiny had kind of stopped when the first DLC expansion came in. I just never went back to it, and I'm kind of sad I didn't, because there's some stuff in that game that is truly unique, especially when it comes to the raids. I've watched a lot of videos of people playing those raids, and just the level of coordination and the way that they play with the mechanics of the game to give you something new is really interesting, and you just haven't seen that before in certainly a first-person shooter.
There are some things I don't want to say I dislike them, but there are some things that are weaker for me. It's fair to say the plot is... I have the same issue with Destiny's plot as I have with Assassin's Creed plot, which is, as much of a plot as there is outside the missions, once you get into it, it's very much a game of head towards this dot, do what it tells you to do once you get there. Yeah. And there are a lot of missions that are deploy your ghost, fight off a wave of things till it's done. There are
Right.
too many missions that have that as a component, which is fair to say.
But they definitely do the Bungie thing with those missions, where
Right.
you do this, and all of a sudden the whole world starts like shifting around you, and like
Yeah.
this crazy stuff is happening in the scenery, and that is such a Bungie move.
Right.
Like, I remember one of the first ones on Earth is when you have to deploy that satellite dish.
Right.
And fight off the waves coming in, and you can see the satellite like rising and unfolding, and it's really epic looking.
And even on a smaller scale, that one where you've got to hack that that defensive grid through the doors, and there's 3 layers of just laser beams, and you're waiting for them to slowly pull back. Yeah, I like it. It's a weird game, Destiny, because a lot has been made of the fact that there's a lot of plot outside of the game, right? Like on websites and stuff like that. And so it's fair to say that you can play it without really being very aware of the plot. But the plot elements are... I think it's one of those where the plot elements are consistent within the mission. You know, they will say, you are going to find this lost guardian. And you will. And you'll find what he was looking for. And then you'll hack a thing, and then you'll go. Within the mission itself, the plot is not very... There's very little storytelling once you're into a mission. There's very little narrative beyond this is your mission, and I can only imagine that that's because they know that the structure of the game is that you are going to play them again and again.
Well, and the funny thing is that the little bit of story that's in the background is almost 100% incomprehensible. It's
Right.
It's like, oh, did you know Rasputin's gone rampant and he's a war mind?
Right.
Like, what the fuck is a war mind? You know, like,
Yeah, right. And then you get it, and you're like, oh, okay, it's this purple thing? Okay.
right.
Sod it. Right. As much as there is a story in this game, it is go here, shoot the thing, and we will pretend there is a reason why. But then, between missions, so there'll be a mission where it'll say, okay, I've got to go here and I'll shoot the thing. And you'll spend a lot of time in like a corridor, right? And or in a warehouse, or in a, you know. And then all of a sudden you'll step out and you'll be like, I'm in an abandoned junkyard in a field in Russia where the soil is dead, but life is still coming through the snow and the grass is kind of... And it just has these weird moments where you might not be following the plot at all. You might not be interested in the plot, and yet you suddenly realize you're in this really well-realized, beautiful world, you know? Like, I cannot think of many game environments that are more beautiful than the moon in Destiny, you know?
Yeah, that's a really nice one. I'm a big fan of Venus in
Yeah.
the game. Venus is nice. There's even some parts of Mars that are really cool.
It is a beautiful looking game. And it's not even... I mean, it's not bad technically, but it's not even that it's an amazing technical achievement. It's mostly down to design, you know, mostly down to design choices rather than pushing polygons.
And that's the thing too. Destiny, for everything you say about the lack of narrative in that game, they picked a tone and style and aesthetic for that game, and they stuck with it hard.
I think that's probably my favorite thing. I love that it's set in the future, but it's set so far in the future that they can talk about the ancient past that is still to you in the future.
Yeah.
It's so far in the future that they've reached such a level of technology that as a culture they have become almost medieval again in their... Not in their sort of social values, but in their language and their... You know? They have wizards and knights and guardians.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like you're in this world it's so far advanced, and it's actually lost its like connection to, you know, what created this technology. Like they exist in a time when technology is basically magic, you know?
Yeah.
And they treat it as such.
I did have a minor issue because I was reading something about someone was saying how Destiny 2 was going to be so much better than Destiny 1. And I think it is. I think it looks like it's going to fix a lot of my criticisms of the first one. But one of the things they said was, well, the DLC is going to be better because Bungie said that the engine for Destiny 1 turned out to be quite hard to make DLC for, and that's why the DLC was so kind of repetitive. And when I read that, I was kind of like, but wasn't that the plan? You know, like, if you're going to sell people on that as a concept, you kind of have a responsibility to make sure your technology's fit for purpose, you know?
Well, and this is the thing I'll give Bungie credit for. One, they were rushed come the end. By most parts, by all accounts, Sony really pushed them hard because while it's not a exclusive game, there was a lot of push and promotion that Destiny was like a PS4 game.
It felt like an exclusive.
Sony put a lot of backing behind them.
It felt like an exclusive. It felt like an exclusive without being one.
Mm-hmm. And the problem with like Sony, they had this issue when they launched PS4, especially, that there weren't a ton of games. If you guys remember, the launch of PS4 did not come with a lot of games. And so they really wanted a big blockbuster, and so they pressured Bungie into kind of let's up this about maybe 2 or 3 months.
Right.
And so they did, which also kind of screwed up their DLC release, because then they had this issue where, okay, we lost those 3 months of development time, and then when we did release our final product, people aren't exactly thrilled with what we have, so we need more content quickly.
And then there was the other issue where, like, this came out unplanned. Destiny 2 was supposed to launch earlier than it did, and they pushed it back. And so they ended up with too long a period with no new content, so they ended up releasing Rise of Iron. But Rise of Iron ended up using stuff from Destiny 2 that they hadn't made assets for that would be able to run on last-gen consoles. So you ended up with the problem of 360 and PS3 users bought the game but didn't get the last major expansion, which is not... Like, I can understand why they did it, but it's not a position you want to be in. It doesn't make you feel good as someone who bought the game on PS3 to be told, do you know what I mean? Well, you're out.
Right. Like, I think if, Bungie had their way, they would still be able to support those last-gen content, all the way through until Destiny 2. But at a certain point, you gotta make the hard choices. You gotta be like, all right, well, tell me about the rabbits again, George, and pop,
All Chaos in chat says, I heard if they didn't keep their schedule, especially with Destiny 2, Activision would get a large amount of their shares. I don't like what happened with World of Warcraft under Activision either. I could see that. I don't know myself, but that those are the kind of deals that end up happening. I think Destiny 2, I want to get on the ground floor with this, because the main experience I had with Destiny was surprise. After years of hearing about... I mean, Destiny, let's face it, it has a very devoted audience, but it has been a troubled game. From day one. It just wasn't what they expected it to be, which was Halo multiplayer, the game, success-wise,
Well, and the thing about it is, it's... The problem with Destiny is the same thing that happened with a lot of these games, especially that we started seeing in the first, salvo of... maybe not even the first, but it was ambitious.
Right.
And as we've seen in the past, ambitious games can go way wrong sometimes. Well, I'm looking at you, No Man's Sky.
What I was going to say was, what my dominant feeling with Destiny was, having heard all that for 3 years and then playing the game, just non-stop surprise at just how good it was. Like you couldn't read all the Destiny press and know how good that game actually is, can you? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't reflect how fun that game is.
And that's something I really give Bungie credit for, because they came out with this plan. They're going to have this 10-year plan, and they, from the day one, they said, we are going to support this franchise for 10 years. It's going to be a decade-long worth of content. And their first go at it wasn't stellar, wasn't perfect marks, but they stuck with it. You know, they're like, you know what? We said we're going to do it for 10 years. We're going to make a game you guys fucking like. God damn it.
Yeah, when you talk to people now that all the scandal and the press and the confusion is over, the vast majority of feeling most people have for Destiny is fondness. Not, well, that was mediocre, but wow, wasn't that special? Even if it wasn't worth the money, even if it wasn't exactly what we hoped for, wasn't that something kind of special? And I think that's kind of nice. So I'm gonna go in for Destiny 2. That's me putting my cards on the table. I haven't played the DLC yet. I haven't played the DLC yet at all, but I'm going into it.
And here's the kind of nice thing, I guess, about Destiny and its lack of story. I don't at all feel worried about buying Destiny 2 and not buying the DLC for Destiny 1 and feeling lost.
Like, I'm going to pick up the collection before 2 comes out, but that's mostly so I can keep... I want to be... It's doing really well on the channel. I basically want to be streaming it from now until September and still have stuff to do.
Right. I'll be gone till September.
And that's the end of the show. We were going to go a little bit longer, but John did that, so... Biscuits is cancelled. Pack up your pots and pans. It's time to go home.
As soon as you bust out the Wyclef John song, it's over.
And hello to Blash, who says, "Hey Owen, hey Og, hey Jonathan. Haha, yo, you got the final hello, sir." Final hello.
I fell behind the mod.
So, what have you been doing this week, Jonathan Cadotte, of the family Cadotte?
I actually kind of had it was not a fast food incident.
Oh,
but it was
a Biscuits tradition ruined. Anecdotes, sir. You have not been living up to your biscuity obligations.
But it is food related and involves retail. All right, so it's in the ballpark. All right, give me a break here.
I do enjoy your constant ability to get in food related mishaps.
So, oh, there's my cat.
Hey, it wasn't mine for a change. Ruining the show.
So I went to the grocery store today. It was pretty early. I woke up really early today, and I don't know why. I actually woke up at like 4:30 in the morning for me.
Makes sense.
And so I sit around and find, okay, well, I'm hungry. I need something for breakfast. There's not really much in the house. So I want to run to the store and pick up something. And I get there, and I grab my stuff, and I go to the register, but there's no one at the register. Which
free food.
Is fine. It's kind of a small... Well, it's kind of a small grocery store. It's not really heavily staffed, you know, so I just kind of assumed that the person who's supposed to be watching the register had to go do something else. Perfectly reasonable suggestion, you know?
Right.
And so I'm sitting there, and I'm not even waiting a long time, but this guy comes up and stands behind me. And he goes, "Oh, better ring the bell for service." You know, there's no bell for service. You know, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I guess, man." And he makes a few other comments I don't really pay attention to, but it's clear that he is by far more impatient about this than I am.
Right.
And it's not even a minute. It's not even a minute that we're standing there. And all of a sudden he whistles. Like he's calling a dog. Like that really loud, sharp whistle.
Right.
And he does it, he's like, "Yo, can I get some service?" It's like,
You quickly run to the back of the queue. You can go first. Yo, you did.
I just looked at the guy. Like, you know what? Should there have been someone here to serve us right away? Maybe. But who the fuck cares that much, man? We're even waiting a minute.
Right.
It's like, wow, what an incredible piece of shit you are. Like, like if I was the worker and someone whistled at me like that, I would purposely then take longer to get there. Which would have sacrificed myself, too, in the process, because, like, it wasn't just this guy waiting in line. I'd be like, well, you just ruined it for yourself and the other guy in line with you.
I have worked retail, and I can tell you right now, that is what you do when you have difficult customers.
Mm-hmm.
I'll, like, deliberately give their change in the smallest coins you have. Take a really long time.
Oh, I've done that to people. I used to work retail too, and this lady was giving me hassle, and I purposely, I'm like, oh yeah, it looks like I'm out of 20s here. Singles okay? I think I gave her like $40 in singles. I'm like,
the worst thing I ever did, I probably shouldn't tell this. I don't know if is this a crime, do you think? The worst thing I ever did to a customer who was incredibly rude to me is when I weighed her apples, I rested my thumb on the scale and pushed.
That's terrible. I mean, I approve, but that's terrible.
Yeah, you've seen how expensive apples can get.
Yeah, sorry, man. There's been a shortage of apples lately, and
apple crisis. Yeah, these are some damn good apples.
It's a great apple famine of 2010.
Yeah.
Somehow it's still screwing over the Irish. We just don't know how. Do they make apples? I don't know.
There we go. That's another country we can check off our fan list.
Who have we lost? Poland, Ireland now,
Bosnia.
Yeah, I don't think Bosnia's a fan of us.
How did we lose Poland?
I don't know. I think I did make some comment about Poland once.
But the Germans really like our the Germans really like our flying bombardier turret operatives. They're on board with that.
Yeah. So that happened, and that's kind of my weird anecdote for the day. But I have been watching a show lately.
Oh yeah?
And I actually just finished it up. It's a show called Dear White People.
Oh, that's on Netflix. It's based on that movie.
Yeah. I haven't seen the movie.
Before it was a movie, it was a trailer that made people very, very angry on the better-natured part of the internet. The part of the internet where people are happy and not at all racist.
Twitter.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie either.
Yeah, I haven't. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to go back and watch the movie at all. But I really like the show.
Did you learn anything about being a white person?
No. Okay, so that's the thing about the show. They like their promotional stuff really makes it seem like it's going to be like this hard-hitting show about race relations and things like that. But they kind of pull a curveball on you. They swerve. And what you realize what the show is that everyone, be it white, black, whatever, they're all kind of fucked up in their own way. And throughout the show, they kind of they single out characters, and they focus on one character per episode in this kind of interweaving storyline.
Right.
So basically how it's set up is like there's like a series of events, big events that happen over the course of the show, and then what they'll do is then they'll show that those same events from different perspectives, based on the characters. And like the big one at first is this blackface party, because the initial conflict comes between the main character, this Samantha White, and this satire magazine, which is supposed to be kind of like a National Lampoon sort of thing,
right?
Because they're all going to like this fictional Ivy League school, like Winchester Academy or something like that. And so the main conflict is between her and this magazine called Pastiche. And what happens is like this magazine throws a blackface party as kind
As
of
you
a. It was kind of like a fuck you to her because she has the radio show, which is Dear White People, and it was supposed to be kind of their fire back, like hey, we're not all racist either, so we're going to throw a blackface party. It's really strange, and so this happens, and it just kind of sets the campus on fire. And everyone's upset, and but then you come to realize in the first episode that their blackface party was just supposed to be kind of a threat, almost. Like, they weren't actually going to do it. They were just talking about it and like try to get like a rise out of people, but they were never actually going to have the party. The main character, Samantha White, who's this black woman, actually hacked their profile and sent out the invitations herself to spark the controversy. And but what is really nice is that, and it was something I was worried about, that it was going to be kind of like this bashing sort of thing, because these shows can really, because there's been other shows like that show Blackish, I think at times can get kind of like, oh god, all white people are stupid sort of thing.
Right.
And which, I mean, whatever. Like, I mean, here's the controversial statement: we have the privilege to sustain ridicule, but I just don't enjoy watching it.
You racist against white people, white person.
But what the show really does is that it kind of examines the absurdity on all sides of the debate. Or not the debate, but of like race issues.
Right. Which there's room for.
One of the running jokes. Right. And one of the running jokes in the show is there's like multiple black organizations, school organizations, who all are trying to accomplish the same thing, but none of them like each other.
Or like a People's Front of Judea type thing.
And they refuse to work to... Huh?
Like a People's Front of Judea type thing?
Yeah, because like they talk about, like, they have the Black Student Union, the BSU, and then they have the African American Student Union, and then they have the Black Action Front, or as they like to call it, the Black AF, which, if you're hip to internet slang, just basically means black as fuck.
What if you're not hip to internet slang? What does it mean then?
Then it means black as fuck. I just told you. All right, there's no excuse. Ignorance is no defense of the law.
I'll try my best. I don't mean to upset you, John.
Yeah, and then there's a couple other groups, but they all kind of take on this role of like these. They are stereotypes. There's like the more hardcore, almost like Black Panther-ish group, and then there's
I just thought
preppy.
I just thought the show Dear White People was just going to be about really nice white people. Those are
dear white people. But it's funny because like one of the big issues that they deal with in the show is, at what point are you fighting so hard for a cause that you actually kind of lose sense of self?
Right.
Like at one point, have you made your life so miserable because you're constantly trying to fight the good fight that you are missing out on thinking it's fun?
30 seconds after you set up a Tumblr profile is the answer.
Because like another controversy that comes up is that the main character, who is this kind of like this real powerful, that and they do play it up as being somewhat absurd at times, but she's like, everything that happens, she's like, well, the white oppressive society that is keeping my people down, like she like that's like her go-to response to everything. And by the end of the show, like everyone is kind of calling her out on it. Like will you shut the fuck up? You know. But she ends up like one of the controversies is that she has a white boyfriend that she's been keeping secret. And that leads to a bunch of conflict, and it's a really good show. And
well, I've been meaning to give it a watch, so I will probably pick it up by the time we do the next show. I think I'll watch at least a few.
One of my favorite jokes in the whole thing, because it is really funny. That's the thing too. It's a really funny show.
Right. Well, the original movie was a comedy, so
yeah.
I would hope they hadn't turned it into a gritty drama.
There's this big argument that's going down at a party, and it all starts out with the use of the N-word, specifically in a rap song, and it starts this big argument, and someone mentions slavery, and then someone goes like, "Man, that was 200 years ago. I had nothing to do with slavery." And all of a sudden this one kid comes up like, "I think we should do what the Germans did." And everyone snaps their head around like, "What?" Like, no, like, address our horrible nature and so that we never do it again. You'd be fully honest about it. Oh, right.
It's very funny. Oh, the Germans. We can laugh at them because they killed all those people that time.
Do you think Hitler ever had that in mind, that he was just... what he was doing was eventually just going to lead to that country being kind of like the whipping boys of the world? Like, whenever you want to make a joke about someone,
have you
you
seen
can make
that
it
film?
about the Germans.
Have you seen that film, Look Who's Back?
No.
It's on the British Netflix. You should see if it's on the American one. It's a German film. Hitler wakes up outside his bunker, basically with no memory of what's happened in the last 45. He just wakes up. His death was misunderstood. Somehow he's back. No memory of what's happened. No older in the years since 1945. And everyone just assumes he's like a performance artist comedian, and he becomes like the most successful comedy act in Germany. Because they just come to the conclusion that anyone who just walks around seriously pretending to be Hitler must just be taking the piss.
Right.
It's a really good film, actually.
Well, that's the whole basis of the joke from the producers.
Right.
That they're trying to make the most offensive Broadway performance they could, but everyone just like, oh, clearly it's satire.
Right. Because Hitler's hilarious. There's that joke, isn't it, when the scriptwriter comes from and he says, "You made the Fuhrer look ridiculous." And they go, "He didn't need any help." You know, that's the Mel Brooks gag that Hitler was ultimately absurd. And that was the best way to respond to him.
All right. So that's kind of what I've been watching. If you guys get a chance, check it out, Dear White People. It's a pretty damn good show. And it's quick. The episodes are only a half hour long. There's only 12 episodes.
Yeah, so if you don't like it, you won't be watching it long. There's no excuse.
Exactly.
I like how that was a selling point. It's not very long. Go watch it. If you're tired of shows that last time, that you have to sit there and endure, this is not one of them. It'll be over. I don't know what it's about, but it's not on very long. Go watch it.
If you're not a fan of indulging in worlds that you've come to love, then this is the show for you.
If you want to have to get up again to change the channel just as soon as you've got comfy, and find something else to watch, this is the program you will enjoy. You can't even be like, it's Netflix, so you can just leave it on, because Netflix does that thing where you put the remote, you forget where you've put it, and 2 episodes in, it's like, are you still watching this? You're like, oh, shut up!
Isn't that the biggest shame in the world, though?
Right.
Where it's like, are you still watching this?
You appear to have been watching
fuck
TV.
you, man. Like,
you appear to have been watching Deep Space Nine for 7.5 hours. I keep expecting to come on tomorrow and be like, do you know you've got crumbs on your folds and a bedsore developing? Like, are you aware of that? Do you want me to keep putting on more episodes of RuPaul's Drag Race so you can slowly kill yourself?
What I'm looking forward to is like when it just starts giving you life advice, where it's like, hey, maybe you should try, hummus instead of that entire pizza.
Are you still smoking? Like every time you get the lighter out, are you still doing that? It's a filthy habit, Well, fuck you, Netflix.
Right?
You turn over to Amazon Prime and it keeps telling you about how happy it is since it went vegan.
It really is the way to go. Gluten's just terrible for you. Yeah, okay. Like, shut up. Just shut up, okay?
Damn
Hulu
streaming
act like this
services
to me.
telling me how to leave their life. And Hulu's just like, sorry, man, I'm good for you. It's slipping you coke through the through the Ethernet cables. It's like
you turn on Hulu, it's just sitting there with a beer and a cigarette, just
right.
Oh, I gotta do something. All right, man.
And
I got you.
through the muffled sound of a changed channel, you can just hear Amazon Prime shouting, "He's messed up his life. He's just trying to take you down too. Shut up."
Hulu's an enabler. Shut up, you pussy. say it to my Hulu fucking face. That's what I thought. Eat your fucking kale chips, you piece of shit.
He's stuck for 6 weeks because Hulu's in rehab again.
Hulu's doing time for that pinched car. What? I was drunk, man. I thought it was mine.
So, should we talk about Guardians of the Galaxy 2?
I want to keep talking about Hulu being drunker.
Fair enough. Go for it.
I was like, you turn on Hulu and it's just like, oh man, I haven't seen you for a while. I thought you went clean. Once you went straight, I would be like, man, lost another one. Like, oh no, I just, I was trying to make some changes. I'll spend some time with Crackle, and don't even get me fucking started about Crackle. You know what that asshole did the other day? Came in and ordered a red wine. Who the fuck does that? Who orders wine?
He's always going on about the really obscure TV shows he's made of.
All he ever does is like tell you how great things used to be. It was pretty good back in the day when it was just me and Netflix, right? Netflix, me and Netflix had our issues, but he's a decent guy. And then fucking Amazon showed up and Epix. And
Crackle's funny because
HBO Now. Are you goddamn kidding me?
Crackle's funny because in this country it doesn't have the license to anything, but it still runs as a service. But you can only get what it decides it has the license to. So for a really long time it was Spanish language movies from the 60s and the animated series of The Tick. That was it. It was the only things on the entirety of Crackle. And you'd be like, I wonder what's on Crackle, because it runs on my iPad, and I can watch a movie on my iPad while I go sleep. And they're okay, it's either learn Spanish or that episode of The Tick where the mustache escapes again. Crackle, man.
That was a good episode, though.
Yeah, it's the one episode of The Tick that's always on when you want to watch The Tick.
Is that the one that has Batman Well in it?
I believe so, because I remember that character. Come on, let's do it. Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Everyone's itching to hear about it. All right. We saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, by which I mean we watched Guardians of the Galaxy and doubled the volume, because we were too cheap to pay to the cinema.
we just plugged our earphones into a jack we found outside, and we just just listened to it and pretended we knew what was happening.
I loaded in the chapter headings on the Blu-ray and 2 would mean. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, we saw it. We're going to do spoilers, though, so if you haven't seen it,
yes.
Get the hell out of here. You don't want this spoiling for you. It's like an Agatha Christie style mystery where if you hear the ending, the whole movie... He
killed himself at the end.
...will be... yeah. Just didn't give him a chance to get away. It's not like that at all, actually. I would say if you're not too fussed for spoilers, you could probably get a decent amount of spoilers and still enjoy this movie. It's not that kind of film.
Yeah.
But we do spoilers anyway, so we deliberately do not inhibit ourselves when we're talking about a movie, so... yeah. We're gonna do it. Should we go through it?
Yeah, what do you think of it?
Well, I have said this a few times. I think it's better than the first one. Okay. And I say that as someone who loves the first one.
And I also love the first one, and I think the first one is still better.
Do you love this one, or do you just like this one?
See, I have a really deep abiding love for the first one.
Right.
That first one came out in a time when, not only like personally, but like in terms of all these comic book movies coming out, it was needed.
Right. It was a really rough time for you. You'd just been kidnapped and taken to space. You'd found an old Walkman, and that was your only companion. It was a real personal time.
Yeah, I became a robotic raccoon.
Right.
I got over
I'm
it.
going through changes.
I want to dance with my father.
You started taking things really literally. Yeah.
Right, yeah. I have a blue sister who wants to kill me.
Yeah, to be fair, that's... We can all relate to that.
And I am Groot.
Yeah, we can do them all.
Yeah.
No, the defining thing for me is I think that the distinction with this is how real... No, I'm not going to say the distinction between you and I, because I don't think you and I are divided on this, but there seems to be two responses in my opinion, right? There are the people who like this one a lot, and some people like it more than the first one, some people don't, but there are the people who like it a lot, and there are the people who are saying that this is more of a bit of a damp squib, a little bit of a lackluster sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm looking at those opinions, the distinction seems to be between people who were sold on the universe from the first film as a believable place or not. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Whereas I really wasn't. And I don't mean that as a criticism of that film, but it didn't feel like a universe grounded in reality at all the time, It felt like characters grounded in reality.
It's an absurd part of the universe,
Right.
It's an absurd section of space. And,
right, and if you take this as being, the first one was like a Star Wars with a universe defined like that, the second one feels like it's lost control of the reins a bit. But if you saw the first one as more of a backdrop for character moments and not as well-defined a universe, you still feel like they've dropped the reins, but that seems like a good thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really enjoyed how much this film let the leash off, if you know what I mean. And I don't normally like that in sequels. But I actually really liked how unrestrained this film felt. Like, it just felt like it just hit you, and then it just happened. It just kept going,
So, okay, that kind of actually leads to the reason why I think I liked the first one more.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not one of these people who think that, this is a movie that was steeped in realism, or,
No, but
things like that.
Those are the people who don't seem to like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 at all.
Mm-hmm. My issue is that it kind of did the thing that I don't necessarily think it's bad. It's just sometimes it gets a little grating to me, is when something feels a need to double down.
Right.
And that's what got to me, because Guardians 1, for all intents and purposes, it's a goofy movie, and it's it's a comedy, but there was some kind of like, it was tempered with a heart. This idea of all these people, coming together at the end, and they fully admit that they're all a bunch of assholes, but they're gonna do the right thing this one time. And so you had that the kind of wash down the constant gags and jokes. This one, I feel, kind of misses that a little bit, and it's just kind of, it almost feels like, how many jokes can we shove into this movie per second?
I would agree with that. I think it's fair to say this one is more of an overt comedy than the first. And one of the things that I think is true is the first one strikes an almost perfect balance between action, seriousness, drama, comedy, and a lot of stuff. It is a really well-made film in balance, right? Guardians of the Galaxy 2 feels very much like an unbalanced film to me, but not in a bad way. I actually really liked that it felt... Where Guardians 1 felt very balanced to me, Guardians 2 feels balanced in a very different way, in that what it combines is the most unrestrained levels of action and humor and silliness, which I think we can agree that this film has that, right? It's very unrestrained in its desire to be silly and action-based, right? But rather than tightly structuring it, the way it balances it is, weirdly, I think this is one of the most sentimental action movies I've ever seen.
Yeah,
and I
can see it.
I think that rather than being balanced the way Guardians is, where everything's tightly placed, it felt to me like what they'd done... This is a stupid analogy because they're not physical objects, but what it feels to me is like Guardians balances total lack of restraint with this counterweight of heart that pulls you back to me, and I liked that. I was so invested in those characters and what I liked about them that the fact that it was so unrestrained didn't bother me, because I didn't feel like the film was losing itself. And I liked that. I liked just being able to sit down and lose myself in it. But I think
my problem with the sentimentality of number 2 is I do get the feeling, and I'm not going to say that this is 100% true. This is definitely a subjective observation. A lot of the sentimentality for me felt almost wedged. And it doesn't... I don't think the sentimentality holds up. Okay, for instance, here's where the spoilers come in, folks. I think one of the big sentimental moments of the film is the fact that Peter's found his real dad, and it's a big deal for him, because he's even talking about how he never knew his dad, and then he finds his real dad, and it's this big moment for him, and he's super happy. But the minute that his dad becomes the villain, essentially, it's such a flip. Like, he doesn't even question it. He goes, okay, my dad's the bad guy, he has to die. And there's no payoff for the sentimentality. There's no moment where he has to make a decision. There's no moment where he has to decide, do I, even try to turn my father into a good guy, or do I...
And without
just
getting into
he's lost, he has to die.
Without getting into the plot just yet, they try to buy that moment with a revelation. And I will agree that it doesn't fully cover the speed of that switch. But at least they did have an instigating moment. Do you know what I mean? They did have a dramatic revelation in there that preceded it. Without getting into the plot, because we are going to get into the plot, I don't want to get into very nitty-gritty details till we do, but it's not like it comes out of nowhere, is all I'm saying, that switch in Peter.
Well, there's two moments, and they kind of come back to back, and it's almost like they put these two moments back to back as a way of being like, to me it almost felt like we're going to put these two things in the movie that are both kind of horrific, and we're going to reveal them to you back to back so that you don't even question whether or not Ego is a bad guy or has any redeeming qualities.
Right.
I
will say
it feels almost a little cheap.
I didn't have that experience, but what I will say is I do get the feeling, however, we are debating over a pretty small ground here, right? You still thought this movie was pretty great, right?
Oh, I loved it.
We are broadly
in agreement.
Into it. Let's get it. Okay. I am going to just address something in the chat. Blanche says, the first was better. I think the second one was much more of an explaining movie. A lot of things made sense in the second, but I don't know why Marvel did go in that direction. And then Blanche also said, but he done it for his mother! Which we will also get into. There are a few things I do want to talk about specifically, but I liked that we opened in the 80s again. Well, not the 80s. I think we were a bit further back at that point. I liked that we opened in the past again. So should we just go through the plot? Should we talk about it? Oh, I don't know. Do you want to do the plot?
Yeah,
Shall I do the plot?
We'll do it in our patented Biscuits way.
We're gonna easily distracted sense.
The plot.
All right. Yes. Well, I'll get into it then. We open with Kurt Russell and a woman who could or might not be the same actress from the first film. I wasn't sure. Playing his mother.
Well, because the only way we saw her in the first one is like bald and sickly
for like 30 seconds. They could have recast her and it wouldn't have mattered, but but it was the kind of thing that I was sat there going, is that the same actress? They are driving in a Cadillac. We hear our first Volume 2 soundtrack, Brandy, which has been stuck in my head ever since that film. And we basically see this is Peter Quill's mother, and we know this is going to be Peter's dad. Like, I don't know about you, but there weren't many surprise revelations in this. And we've established from the first one what's going on, so we...
Well, I mean, they ruined that revelation in the trailers.
Yeah, pretty much. And we accompany them to I should just say, I've just got a text from my girlfriend who is apparently listening to the show saying, no, that's not the start, ELO! But that is actually, no, that comes later. This is a pre-credit sequence.
So there... Ha! Owen's girlfriend.
It's true, though, isn't it? It was pre-credit. This bit was first, right?
Yeah.
So it's Peter Quill's mother and Kurt Russell, and they are going to plant this thing in the woods, which is basically... it's an alien tree, basically. They go plant an alien plant. And they have a little bit of conversation about their love affair. They're clearly a young couple in love.
Here's an interesting thing about that scene, though. They didn't actually use CGI to make him look younger. That's
because Kurt Russell is made of latex, and has been since 1987.
Right. He went through an experimental drastic surgery to turn his skin into plastic.
He looked young, but he did still look like old Kurt Russell young, not like young Kurt Russell did. His face was quite wide, you know?
Is that what happens when you get old? You just get a wide face?
Pretty much. That's what happens to Kurt Russell.
In your mind, that's aging?
Hey, it does. I'm
ever expanding outward.
Nothing else about the body changes. It's the same as a 9-month-old baby. Just the face gets 90, wider until it's...
By the time you're 90, you can't fit through doors. It's like, oh, my cheeks.
So they plant the tree, they have a goodbye kiss, and then that's pretty much it, isn't it? You know, we see that. What did you think of the opening then? Should we talk about that scene? Sets a tone, doesn't it? Reminds you that this is a film grounded in the 80s.
It does well to kind of... What I think it does is that it does really well to kind of establish Peter's personality.
Right, and where he comes from.
Because clearly we have this young couple, and it's not just a young couple, it's like a wild and free couple. They really
they've got the Cadillac,
this, you know.
the convertible.
It's not a Cadillac.
Not the Cadillac.
God damn it!
I meant to say convertible, and Cadillac came out. They've got the convertible,
tops down. They're standing in the seats. The wind's blowing through their hair. They're listening to
the future.
They're making love in the forest, and
as you do.
Yeah, watch out for ticks.
And then
personal experience.
And then we go to presumably the present day. This is presumably 2017, as futuristic as it looks. In space, where the Guardians of the Galaxy are pretty much the same as we left them, same cast, except for Groot, who is out of his pot and running around, but still very much a baby. They're basically working as mercenaries at this point, right?
Yeah.
And their goal is to protect these batteries from an interdimensional beast that is coming to eat them. They've been hired to do it, and they're caught in an argument because Rocket is busy hucking up some music instead of helping, and Drax thinks he should be doing it. There's a little bit of a fight, but the main thing is they're here to protect these batteries that are they're like the best batteries in the universe and insanely valuable, basically. So something's coming to feed on them.
What's nice about this scene is it actually kind of sets up, at the very least, Rocket's character arc in the movie.
Definitely. My favorite running joke.
It seems to be his thing is, and I think it's a carryover from the end of Guardians 1, where he, above everyone else, he decides to take it upon himself to try to protect as many people,
right,
like on the ground, as possible. And it seems like this is carryover where he's kind of trying to do what he thinks people want him to do.
One thing I will say is this picks up very well with where the characters were at the end of the last film. We get a first,
like I said, that the argument is like Owen said, is that he's trying to hook up this sound system essentially so they can have music playing while they have this fight.
And there's this great moment where he's like, Quill's like, no, I agree with Drax. We don't need the music. It's like, oh, yeah. And he tries to wink, but he winks with the eye facing Drax. So it's like, there's also a brilliant exchange where Drax asks what it is they're projecting, and what are they called? Quill says they're called something like Alakaz batteries. Al something, and he goes, Herdolator batteries. He's like, that's not even close to what I said. Which became my absolute favorite joke through the film. Drax gets a lot of running jokes and not much else in this film. I think it's fair to say.
Because like his big
his plot is wrapped.
Arc, it wrapped up in one.
Yeah, very well in one. So they might as well use him for the comic relief, I suppose. We then get our first action sequence as the monster attacks. It's a giant tentacled beast, and they start to fight it. Meanwhile, Groot, who is not really a combatant, but just a baby, hooks up the sound system, and we get our second big piece of music, Mr. Blue Sky by ELO, which a choice so good you almost think it could have been on the first soundtrack. Do you know what I mean? It's the song that most feels like it came from that first album, if you know what I mean. Beautiful sequence. I like how, as the credits roll by, everyone else is out of focus, except him, while he's doing his stupid dance. But what this really sets up is this establishes Groot's role, because he's the only character that's changed from the first film. Because Groot gives his life, basically, in Guardians 1, and he has returned as an infant. And he is a baby. He's not just called Baby Groot. He acts like a baby. He puts things in his mouth just to see what they taste like. He fights, he laughs, he giggles. And what this scene kind of establishes is while they're all fighting, they're all simultaneously having to watch this baby that isn't really safe. And I liked this dynamic of the family baby. With each member of the family, they have a different relationship to Groot. Each one plays a different role in his life.
But one of the running themes of this is that Groot is clearly a baby, and they all treat him as such.
But they keep giving him really important things to do.
Yeah, but none of these characters really understand what it means to have a baby.
Right.
So while they're like trying to be like protective of him, they're not really protecting him a lot of times.
No, this really culminates in the finale, but my favorite single moment in this sequence is when Gamora says, "Groot, get out of the way, you're gonna get hurt," and he just starts waving, and she's like, "Hi." Like, the running theme with Groot is that Groot can only ever say, "I am Groot," but this particular version of Groot has not really learned to speak yet. So he doesn't follow instructions well, and he doesn't, not that he ever did, but he's very much the baby. The battle goes on, I don't know, do you have anything to say about this? Are we going too slowly? I don't know.
No. There's not really much else to say about it.
It's a cute sequence.
Yeah, it's a cute sequence. It does well to introduce the characters again, and sets the tone for how these guys operate. You know, it's even though they're in life or death situations, they're all kind of just nonplussed about it.
Right. Drax decides that you can't harm the creature from the outside, so he's gonna attack it from the inside, where for some reason he expects the skin to be thinner.
And they even admit that, like, that's not how that works, which is kind of a take on like some sci-fi tropes, you know. Where we've seen that before, where like, oh, I'm gonna kill it from the inside. Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right. While you're being digested. It'll be much easier. They win the fight. They stop the monster from stealing the batteries, where they are taken for their prize to the Sovereign, who are the people who hired them. Now, I actually liked the Sovereign a lot. I don't know. I don't know if these guys are from the comics. I am not familiar with them. I'm guessing they are.
I think they are. I haven't. I'll be fair. Like, I read a lot of comics, and I think it's fair to say that I've taken the role of the comic guy on this show. Guardians are one that I just don't know a ton about.
They exist in an area of the Marvel universe that is very niche. Like, well, we'll get to that later. But so the Sovereign.
Like, the people who read Guardians of the Galaxy back in the day are the same people who read the New Gods.
Right. So the Sovereign are established...
Strange people.
The Sovereign are established as a very high-tech, advanced race. But the reason they can't defend the batteries themselves is they have come to the belief that they have reached a state of absolute perfection, and therefore, to risk their own lives defending the batteries, it isn't worth the risk at all. And this carries through them as themes. They use remote control ships, they don't endanger themselves in any way, but they believe themselves to be perfect. And I just thought that was an amazing idea for a race, that this is a race that just considers them to have reached the absolute peak, and everyone else in the universe thinks they're snobs.
Yeah, everyone thinks they're just assholes.
I thought that was pretty good, but they get their reward, which is Nebula, basically. And there's a little back and forth between Nebula and Gamora. Gamora says basically the only reason they even want her is because there's a bounty. And then they pretty much leave. It's a pretty short scene, but as they're leaving, Rocket reveals to Drax that he's basically stolen some of the batteries. So after all that being paid to defend them, he's just taken something, which Drax thinks is hilarious. And then they leave. I don't think I missed anything there, did I?
I mean, that's the thing about this movie is it is so breakneck. Because literally after they leave, it's not even a minute later that they're now being chased.
We're not even 10 minutes into this film either. This is immediately the beginning of the film. So they don't get very far before the theft is detected. They get attacked by the Sovereign, who are attacking in these remote control ships, which basically crash lands them, right? That basically maroons them. But before they are wrecked, Rocket sees them being rescued by a man standing on top of a little spaceship that looks a little bit like a sperm. That seemed to be the design of the ship. I think that was intentional, because thematically it makes sense. It was. And they crash. Nebula almost escapes, but is prevented from. And they basically split into... I can't remember why they split up. Oh no, Peter... Wait, does... Right.
No,
they crash.
Because then Ego shows up.
Ego shows up on the planet, and he introduces himself. It's Kurt Russell, it's the guy from the beginning. He introduces himself to Peter, saying that he is his father. Peter is dubious. But as you would be. But he agrees that they will go and visit Ego's planet while Rocket stays and fixes the ship. So Rocket, Baby Groot, and Nebula stay on the ship. Gamora, Drax, and Quill go with Ego back to his planet to hear the story about Ego being his father. Meanwhile, on a planet that basically seems to be one big set of bars, Yondu from the first movie and his Ravager friends are living it up when they bump into Stakar. And I actually know who this character is, because Stakar is another member of the original Guardians of the Galaxy, among many other characters, which Yondu was also a member of the original Guardians of the Galaxy. Yes. He basically meets the original Guardians of the Galaxy, who are another chapter of Ravagers, and they reveal that Yondu and his Ravagers have essentially been excommunicated from the wider... Yeah, because he trafficked children. And he's been trying to make peace for this, but it hasn't really worked out well. Meanwhile, Yondu kind of has a mutiny brewing on his hands, because the rest of the Ravagers are pretty pissed off because he keeps letting Quill get away with things, and so they ended up screwed at the end of the last film. And also that now they've been kicked out of the Ravagers, there's also a sense that why are they still following the Ravager code, you know?
Right.
And not just going out there making riches, the typical mutiny thing. And they are contacted, Yondu and his Ravagers, by the Sovereign, who, for such an advanced race, can't make a good carpet roller.
No.
Which I loved. I loved that joke, and a lot of people I've heard say that joke is too stupid. It is not stupid because they are supposed to be a perfect race. That is why that joke works for me.
Right. I mean, and that's kind of running joke with the Sovereign, is they're supposed to be perfect, but they are constantly either screwing up or failing, and then they just, like, yell at, like, one guy over it.
Right. And they're not perfectly modest or perfectly, like, with this carpet roller, it exists so that the member of the royal family can walk on a blue carpet through the snow. And I love when they pan up and she's got royal guards all the way down the carpet for like miles down the strip. And they've all had to stand ceremoniously. The Sovereign were my favorite alien race I've seen in a film in a long time. And they contract Yondu to catch Quill for stealing their batteries, basically.
Right.
So then we head back to the planet where Rocket's fixing the ship next, I think, where the Ravagers are basically planning to kidnap them. They don't know Quill's not there at the moment. They're trying to fulfill their mission from Sovereign. Rocket, you think that they've got the drop on them, but it turns out Rocket has the whole forest booby-trapped.
Yeah.
And he pretty much defeats all the Ravagers until there's only Yondu left and he has his little whistle arrow. Which kind of reminded me, have you seen that scene in Austin Powers 3 where Michael Caine fights all those anonymous goons And then Mini-Me comes behind him with a gun, and because he's the main character, he just puts his hand up. It was that trope, right? The main character can't be overpowered. So they've been screwed, basically. Meanwhile, Nebula has told Baby Groot that if he unties her, she will save them, basically.
Right.
Yondu
and
confronts...
She helps capture them.
No, she does not. Yondu confronts Rocket and basically says, well, we don't actually need to bring Quill back. We'll just take these batteries, because that's all we need, because the batteries are worth money anyway. And you get the sense that, which was established in the first film, that Yondu is actually quite fond of Quill. He's not as... There is a familial relationship there that is unspoken, as is a theme with someone else. And so, this basically is the last step for the mutiny. The mutineers are done with Yondu at this point. Nebula actually shoots him and trashes his fin. And that's Rocket, Baby Groot, Yondu, captured by the Ravagers, who go rogue. And they take Nebula with them. Meanwhile, we go to Ego's planet. Which, this has all been intertwined, but basically, Ego's planet turns out to be a paradise.
Yeah.
Have I missed anything? I think we're...
No, we're no, that's pretty good. Yeah, so we do end up on Ego's planet next. And
Mantis is there, by the way.
Mantis is there. We've been introduced to her, and right away she kind of reveals that her job is kind of a servant for Ego. She helps him sleep.
Right.
Because apparently he has issues sleeping.
And she's also psychic.
Empath. She's an empath.
Well, yeah.
She can feel emotions if she touches someone. And which they use to great comic effect. Because they...
Everyone's seen that one in the trailer, I think.
Yeah.
I did like that has a second punchline that didn't make it to the trailer. Which is, after Drax says, do me, she touches him and joins in laughing at Quill.
Right. Because at this point, they're playing off of the first Guardians, where Gamora and Quill have like a moment, but they don't fully commit to being like lovers.
There's a wonderful conversation.
Quill keeps on insisting that... Huh?
Sorry, no, carry on.
And Quill keeps on insisting that there's like an unspoken thing between them, and she's like, "There's nothing between us." Like, oh, come on.
There's a brilliant conversation where he keeps comparing them to Sam and Diane from Cheers. He goes to great length, and she's like, "I don't know who these people are." It's a very funny little moment. We get to know Ego a little bit better. He tells the story of who he is, basically. He reveals that he is Ego's planet.
Yeah,
and that
and this is actually kind of a bigger reveal than maybe a lot of people realized. Especially if you're only watching the movies, this means absolutely nothing to you. But if you are a Marvel comic fan, he says that he is a Celestial.
Yeah.
Celestials are kind of a big deal in the Marvel universe. They are.
Yeah. He's
incredibly powerful.
Ego the living planet. Who is a huge life form the size of a planet.
I mean, so much so, I think the Celestials have, on multiple occasions, stepped into smack around Galactus.
Well, Galactus is also a Celestial, I believe.
Is he also Celestial?
He's classed as that group. I've just been reading the Infinity War comic, which comes down to amassing the Celestials, which is interesting. I'm really interested, by the way, because I like the character of Thanos. And it's interesting that in all his appearances so far in Marvel films that nobody's mentioned his obsession with death. And I hope that makes it to Infinity War.
No, there is a little bit. It's kind of a snide joke. But when he's first revealed in Avengers, they go, to challenge them is to court death. And he just smiles.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I can get with that. I just think I hope it's the most interesting.
You You dirty boy.
It's the most interesting thing about Thanos. I hope it makes it intact, is what I'm saying.
Right.
So Ego the Living Planet...
I don't know if they will, because you have to then actually establish that there is a personification of death in the Marvel Universe.
I don't know. You can do it. Did you ever see the Silver Surfer cartoon where he was in love with Chaos and he had a statue of Lady Chaos and you're like, what does that even mean?
Chaos!
So Ego the Living Planet is our character, and he basically tells the story of how he's been alive in some form for centuries. Millennia.
Millions of years.
Yeah. And he started off as like an amoeba, and then became a planet, and then became a consciousness and alive, and just this big celestial force. He is a celestial. He's one of the most powerful beings in the universe. And for the entirety of his life, the vast majority of his life, he's believed himself to be alone. And then one day he decides that he needs to find out if there is other life in the universe. So he's going to make himself an avatar, basically, a body that he controls, which happens to look coincidentally just like a human. I don't know.
Like Kurt Russell.
Right, it happens to be Kurt Russell. Now, I don't know if they were going to suggest he had like a different one for every planet he went to, but they show the Kurt Russell avatar with a lot of different species, you know?
Yes, knowing them biblically.
Yeah, that's the best shot in the movie. So he's made this avatar of himself, and he sends it out into space to make contact with other species. And he did. It says quickly he did. And he meets Peter's mother and falls in love. And Peter was conceived. And now he wants to bring him home to give him his inheritance, basically, which is access to the planet that birthed both of them. And the power to create its surface. Meanwhile...
And they do a cool moment with this. When he's helping Peter... harness the power for the first time, and Peter does it. He says, all right, now form it into something, and Peter makes a ball, and he's like, all right, well, throw it to me. And essentially they play
catch.
They play catch, like a
it's
cheesy
deliberately
Lifetime
corny
movie.
But it's a great gag and moment.
Because they're throwing a ball around, but it's a fireball essentially.
It is really great. Now this actually takes quite some time. This plays out for quite a while, but the long and short of it is, while Peter's getting to know his dad more and getting to know the story there, Drax and Gamora are getting to know Mantis and are starting to become a little suspicious. Which, if there's one weakness in the film, it's that this is the plot of at least a third of all Star Trek movies. They go somewhere that's too good to be true. One character is sold. The rest are a little concerned. And that's...
Right. Well, the thing is that Mantis... It's clear that she's actually starting to take a liking to these guys.
Right.
And she starts to appear kind of torn about something.
Yeah.
And you don't know what exactly. Because at this point, it switches back over to
the Ravagers.
Baby Groot, Rocket, and Yondu.
Who are not doing so well.
No, they're all captured. Yondu and Rocket actually have a kind of a nice moment together, because Yondu essentially says, like, look, I know why you're doing all this stupid shit. Like, I know why you stole the batteries and all this. It's because you're me when I was that age. It's basically, I know you're kind of a fuck up, and you have a lot of pain, you have a lot of issues going on, and you're kind of trying to hide it all by doing this stuff. Because what essentially he's doing is that by stealing the batteries, he was kind of fabricating a reason for his new family to stick together.
Right.
Because he doesn't want to be left alone again.
Of all the things I expected to see in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, a tender bonding moment between Yondu and Rocket wasn't it.
Right.
And yet it works. There's also a really great moment here when the the rebellious pirate that has taken over decides to declare himself the new name of terror in the galaxy, and that
Taserface.
everything will fear Taserface, which Rocket decides to seize upon mercilessly. And you can tell he's kind of doing it to kind of undermine his loyalty, but this actually becomes a running joke that Taserface is not a very intimidating name.
Right.
There is also a great joke when they ask if they should kill Groot, and the captain's response is that he's too adorable to kill. Get him a tailor, and they put him in a little Ravager uniform. But then they actually torment him horribly, which was I was surprised.
It was a very strange moment. It was actually almost unsettling to watch. We've spent so much time with the movie establishing how cute and adorable Baby Groot is, and he's just this little character. And then there's kind of a long drawn sequence where they essentially just slap him around and kind of torment him
and throw stuff on him. And when that scene finishes, you don't see him again, and he sees his friends, and he's like, "Yay! Oh, it's okay." He is crying, arms
he's
down,
hurt.
like he's traumatized.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will admit, I like this character. I'm glad that Baby Groot isn't going to be in more than this one. He's clearly going to be fully grown. I think one film of Baby Groot is the right amount. But I liked him in this film. And I was really surprised they put me through that. You know what I mean? Like,
it was just kind of like, oh, why? Like, what purpose does this serve?
But then we get...
So after that, we get a great moment where Yondu and Rocket become determined that they're going to break out. But to do this, they need a prototype fin for Yondu.
Yeah, so he can control his little arrow.
Yep. And so they employ Baby Groot to do this.
Because they just let Baby Groot walk around.
You essentially get like it was like almost like a 10-minute long sequence.
It is so drawn out and yet enjoyable. Like they knew it was funny.
Yeah.
First of all, they play it straight.
Too.
First of all, they play it totally straight. Yondu says, "Go to my drawer, get my prototype fin, and bring it back here." And Rocket makes a funny look. But what does he come back with first? It's like
underwear.
And he's like, "That's not what I asked for." And Rocket's like, "Yeah, I thought he didn't know what she was asking." Like yeah, he doesn't speak English, you know.
Right.
So what follows is they just say it to him again, and he comes back with like the toe. When he just...
Well, yeah, he comes back with like a thumb, and they're like, "You don't happen to keep like a drawer or something full of like thumbs, do you?" No. Yeah, we shouldn't talk about this ever again.
They never understood it. It comes with that giant desk.
Yep.
And then we get my favorite sequence when he gets the little Ravager badge out, and he says, the drawer it's on has this symbol on it. And he hands it to him, and he immediately just puts it on his head. He's like this? Rocket says he thinks you want him to wear it as a hat. I am Groot. He's relieved you don't want him to wear it as a hat. I am Groot. He doesn't like hats. And not just on him, on anyone. You see someone, you think they got a weird-shaped head, it turns out they're just wearing a hat. That's why you don't like people who wear hats? Because he's a baby, and he thinks like a baby. But
they do eventually get the fin.
I just want to say, while we're on the subject, because this is Baby Groot's probably his standout scene.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to talk too much about how much I like Baby Groot, because you know that's the character they're marketing and they want you to do it.
Oh, yeah.
But this character is a success. It never gets... You never sit there going, oh, not another Baby Groot scene.
Right.
He works for just the right amount, and I think they did a really good job there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So he gets the fin back, and what we get next is
Murder, murder,
apparently
murder.
Yondu is like the most powerful character in the world, in the universe, because he, without even much of an effort, uses his arrow and the little whistling thing to kill everyone on the ship.
And what is the song
Except
they play
for
during this? Because just before they go do it, Rocket says, in a total detour, "Do you have any of Quill's music on board?"
Yeah.
They're like, "We need a song for this." And it's the only moment where the soundtrack feels as gratuitous in this one as it was in the first. Because in the first one, it was gratuitous, but it was like good gratuitous, you know? Mm-hmm. They really
what song
scaled.
did they use? I don't even remember now.
I just remember thinking it was perfect at the time. Yeah, and it's like one of those, you know, those gymnast displays where they have the ribbon. Like it's just leaving trails of red lines around it. It's a great sequence, and they escape.
Do you remember the song that they used in that scene?
Let me look it up.
What? But yeah, it's another one of those moments where they're playing a song that doesn't really fit the situation at all. It's just mass murder. That's all this scene is. It's just and slow-mo with all the pretty little special effects. It's just mass murder. But it's fun. It's fun mass murder, you know. But
hold on, I'm just looking up. I found a version of the soundtrack with the description of what scenes they were over.
Okay. But here's another thing that happened though during the scene that kind of, it didn't bother me so much, but it was clear that, like, hey, remember that scene in the prison of Guardians 1 where everyone was fighting people off and they did this like spinning around thing where we got a scene of everyone firing a gun or fighting someone? What if we just do that again?
Come a little bit closer.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they do that almost exact shot again, where they do this spin around camera with Rocket with two guns, and they got Yondu with his little arrow flipping around, and it was one of the moments in the movie where it's like, okay, this is clearly a rehash of something that worked really well in the first one, so let's just do it again.
So I will say, I agree that this is the moment where I think they falter with the soundtrack. But what I would like to say is that since the first film came out, a lot of films have tried to copy this soundtrack thing. The best example is Suicide Squad, which did it and fucked it up.
Yeah. It was pretty bad.
It was a terrible attempt to do the same thing. What I will say about
a movie that did it really well, I'll say, is Kingsman.
I have not seen that yet, but I do want to watch it.
Oh my god, man, you need to see that movie.
So, what Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 does for the most part, aside from this one scene, I would say, is it takes a very different approach to the soundtrack, in that it remembers what was established in the first film, and the rules of this is actual music being played in the film, usually.
Right.
But it picks very different songs, uses them very differently, and it feels... It probably doesn't, but it feels like it happens less often.
Yeah, we also get moments in this where the songs are playing, and like you said, for the most part, they're songs that are supposed to be playing in the movie.
Right.
Either through like a sound system or Quinn's... But there are moments where they use the music and it's not playing in the world. There's a really good example of that towards the end.
Right.
Where it's just soundtrack. It's clearly not coming from a source in world.
Yeah. I think this film went the opposite direction to the way everyone expected them to go with the soundtrack from the first one. To its credit. I think it made the right choice. Myself. What do you think?
So, I liked it. I did like the soundtrack. I didn't like it as much as the first soundtrack. But that's nothing against the actual movie. It's just song choices.
No, I agree. I
don't like fucking Stevie Nicks. I can't stand her.
I wouldn't sit and listen to the Guardians 2 soundtrack the way I would with the Guardians 1 soundtrack. But I think it was a better choice for this film to go that way.
And oddly enough, like, so this movie isn't the typical, like, second or the sequel thing where, like, oh, we're going to make this a little bit darker. But the music kind of is a little bit darker. It's
suddenly more mellow, more serious. Yeah. The only song that feels like it's like, hey, look, we're listening to music is Mr. Blue Sky.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of darker, didn't you just love how colorful this film was?
Like, it was an incredibly colorful film.
Just to look at. It was just an amazing film to look at.
It was another one of those movies where I was really torn, because I could have went and saw the 3D version. And I actually saw the 3D version with Guardians 1, and I thought that the 3D actually was really nice in it. The reason I didn't go see the 3D version this time is because I couldn't want to see the 3D version, or I could have went and saw the standard version in what they call the Dream Loungers theater. Yeah. Which, if you guys ever get a chance to do this, it may be the only way I want to fucking watch movies anymore.
Our local cinema has recliners that go right back.
Yeah, and that's what these were. They were powered recliners.
Yep.
That were super comfortable to begin with, but then they pulled back, and I basically just laid flat. And got to watch this movie. It was amazing.
We got that and 3D. Just saying. Just saying. No, we have a cinema nearby. We got some free cinema tickets, not for that cinema. So we still haven't used them because we prefer the recliners one. Yeah, I have restless leg syndrome. So if I have to sit in a fucking cinema for a long film, my feet start to, and my knee crunches up, and I hate it. Those recliners, though, I can sit and watch a film, any film I want, for as long as I need to in those, and they are great. I would watch every film like that if I could, at the theaters.
Yeah, I am, and the thing about it too, for us at least, the ticket prices weren't any different.
No, this is the place we go to. They've just replaced all their seating with recliners as standard.
And I wonder if that's just going to be a thing going forward with theaters, because I mean,
well, they must fit less seats in because of it.
Right, but what I think what we're seeing anyways with movies is that, yeah, these movies are still making a ton of money, but it's also because ticket prices are way higher. I think actual viewership at theaters are going down.
Yeah, so you might as well make it as nice as you can, and then people will want to pay.
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree completely.
So that's how I saw it.
So eventually Groot gets the fin with the help of Yondu's second in command. They make the escape. We did that bit, didn't we? We did the escape.
Yeah.
I went right back to the end of that other sequence. And they
okay, so we get to the point where we get to the reveal. Right?
Yeah, Rocket and Yondu
happens.
are heading for the planet because Yondu... Well, they just know where they've gone. They know they've gone to Ego's planet. And then we get the Nebula goes and attacks Gamora on the planet. All the characters come together on Ego's planet, basically. On Ego, the living planet.
Yeah. So what we get is we get this fight between Gamora and Nebula, and it has a kind of a nice little resolution where, you know, Nebula still blames Gamora for everything that happened to her because Gamora would refuse to lose. And every time those two fought and Gamora won, Nebula would have something altered by her. Her brain was removed and replaced with a computer. Her arm was ripped off and replaced with robots and all this sort of thing. And
I will say right now, of all the subplots in the film, this is the one I could have done without. And
I actually like this.
I like the ending, and I like that they ended on almost a happy resolution note. I think that almost bought it for me. Like, that almost made it worthwhile. I just felt like this was something we could have waited till another film to pick up.
Right.
But that's just me. It's a very minor quibble. It was just the film was already pretty crammed.
So what is revealed is through this fight they end up in the subterranean cavern system because of their fight.
Yeah.
And they're basically trying to find their way out. And at the same time that this is going on, Ego is talking with Peter, and he basically reveals that while he went out and he found life and everything, he was ultimately unsatisfied with what he found.
He specifically says disappointed. He didn't find...
Yeah, he was disappointed with what he found because nothing lived up to what he was.
Right.
And because of this, he comes up with this idea that his real purpose in the galaxy was to essentially be the only life form.
Right. Although he doesn't quite
so
phrase it like that to Quill just yet.
Right.
He tiptoes around it. He also mentions that he's also crossbred with a lot more than just Quill's mother with an attempt to create an heir. And so far, Quill's the only one that's been successful. And it's implied, I think, that the reason the merging worked with Quill is because Ego did actually love his mother, you know?
Yeah.
They do suggest that what he felt for her was genuine. In a way.
At the same time, though, Gamora and Nebula come across essentially a mass grave.
Right.
There's just full of skeletons. And I think maybe at the same time, Mantis is talking with Drax.
Yeah.
And she reveals that Ego basically killed all his other children.
Yeah.
Whenever it was revealed that they wouldn't work and they couldn't harness the power like he could, he killed them.
And also, this is why Yondu was kicked out of the Ravagers. We get 3 revelations at once in 3 different places.
Yeah.
4, in fact. Because this is why... It's actually really clever the way it all comes together in one moment. Yondu didn't just traffic Quill, which is what you're first led to think. He's taken hundreds of children, thousands of children, to their deaths at the hands of Ego. And then you also get the revelation that once Yondu figured out what was happening to those kids, that's why he didn't deliver Quill to Ego and raised him on the ship. And that's pretty much all comes together when we get our final... I'm going to say twist. I saw it coming. Did you see it coming? I think it was foreseeable that Ego deliberately killed Quill's mother because she was an emotional attachment.
He realized that he couldn't actually accomplish his goal because he loved her, so it was him who implanted the brain tumor.
Yeah.
Which snaps Quill out of it, like, because for a moment he's kind of on board. He's kind of overcome with the power. He's like, yes, we have to do this.
Because we should say at this point, like, energy is running through him. He's he's connected to the planet.
But he snaps out of it and just basically shoots the living hell out of
there was a gag here that we didn't establish, but early on, Quill and Gamora have this conversation about how when he was a kid, he used to carry around a picture of David Hasselhoff and tell everybody that David Hasselhoff was his dad, but he was busy filming Knight Rider, so he couldn't come pick him up from school, which is a sweet story. When Ego is rebuilding himself, for a moment, he is genuinely actually David Hasselhoff.
They get David Hasselhoff to cameo in this.
It's brief, but it's worth it.
And dressed as Michael from Kit, or from Knight Rider, I mean.
They fight, but it doesn't really go that well because Ego controls everything.
Yeah.
There isn't that much to say about the rest of the film in terms of detail. What follows is a very long action sequence of different people attempting
the Sovereign show up.
Right. Probably the most interesting thing that happens in this sequence is all the characters come together and decide to fight. There is a great moment when I think it's Drax says that Quill's messed up, but he says, "Of course I am. That's my father," and it's currently half destroyed Kurt Russell coming out of the.
Like, you have some issues. Yeah, look at it. It's like, but we actually get a payoff too during the scene of an earlier joke. Earlier in the movie, Ego tells Peter that, like, oh, you can just create things. and Peter goes, oh, man, there's going to be a giant statue of Pac-Man with Skeletor and some actress, like, clutching to his leg. You know?
Yeah.
I'm going to make some weird shit. And then they get to this moment where Peter and Ego are fighting, and they both can harness the power of the planet, so they're having a big, basically celestial beatdown on each other.
What's great is Kurt Russell, Ego digs in like the
moment where they're charging at each other, and Ego is like bringing rocks around him to make this giant monster.
I just want to say, by the way,
see Peter start doing the same thing.
I love how what Ego looks like, by the way, because he still looks like a big rock Kurt Russell.
And then they pull back and they figure out that Peter has actually pulled these rocks around him, and he looks like fucking Pac-Man. He's just like, walk, walk, walk.
It's really great. By this point, Yondu has arrived. Rocket has arrived. We have a few emotional payoffs. The big turning point in the battle comes when Mantis realizes that she can still make him sleep as the planet. So they send him to sleep while they try and work out their strategy, which they basically figure out what they've got to do is go all the way through to the center of the planet and find the bit that is still him, that is physically the brain, basically, and blow it up with a nuke. So they work on trying to do that.
There is a great moment, because everyone saw it in the trailers, this bit where Rocket is talking to Groot and explaining to him the plan, like, you flip these switches, you hit this button, it'll start the timer. We got 6 minutes to go. Don't hit this button because it'll detonate the bomb immediately. You know, and Groot doesn't really get it right away. So he goes, well, does anyone have any tape that I can put over the death button?
This bit was on the trailer, but then you have that amazing bit. He flies around and you hear him ask everyone individually. But when he comes back and he says, did you ask Nebula? I asked Nebula. I didn't hear you ask Nebula. She was stood next to Yondu when I asked. I knew you were lying.
Yeah, liar.
What's also great is this scene was in the trailer, but what you don't realize is actually how it's established by the earlier scene that he just can't follow instructions.
Right.
But he takes it. It goes out pretty much the same way. There is a brilliant moment. All this time, Ego's still asleep until Mantis gets knocked out by that rock. And after she's knocked out, Drax shouts, "Mantis, look out!" I don't know why that made me laugh so much. I also like when they're referring to the batteries again, and then he just goes, "They're called Herdolator batteries." No, they're not.
But it's also a running gag between Drax and Mantis. Mantis is played by a clearly attractive actress. And she's attractive herself, but it's just not Drax's type. And
so he keeps calling her ugly.
Yeah, because he can't toy her. He doesn't have the ability to dance around the subject. He just calls her ugly at every chance he can.
I did like the Drax line. I did like was when the Sovereign first started attacking. And they went, why are they attacking us? And he went, because Drax stole Herdolator batteries. Sorry, Rocket stole Herdolator batteries. And he goes, Drax! And he goes, no, sorry, you're right, that didn't happen. It's a total mystery.
So we get to the end. You know, the plan actually goes off without a hitch.
Groot does actually manage to hit the correct button. Spoilers for anyone who saw the trailer. I was surprised that was the payoff to that, actually. The big payoff to the scene we'd seen for about a year was he just pushes the right button.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
We get this. Then we get maybe the biggest shift that this movie has, where the bomb goes off and everything's blowing up around, and everyone's kind of trying to get out on their own, and everyone manages to get out except for Peter. Peter's kind of trapped.
Drax's escape line is "my nipples," which is set up earlier as well.
Everyone kind of gets out, but they realize that Peter's left behind. And that's when Yondu and Rocket have another moment where Yondu basically goes, "Give me your spacesuit and your rocket pack." He's like, "I only have one. Give them to me. I need this because I've done some really horrible shit in my life. You gotta give me this one moment." And Rocket agrees. He's like, "All right, here you go, man." And he doesn't tell anyone. He doesn't tell anyone else what Yondu's about to do. Everyone else knows. Like, there's no mystery about what's about to happen. Yondu goes, gets Peter, gets him out in time, and then sacrifices himself to do it.
Wouldn't it be great if Yondu had just gone, "I'm out of here, bitches!"
Peace out! But he sacrificed, and there actually isn't some really cool moments here. It all kind of happens really fast because Gamora also realizes at the last second that they're missing Peter, and she said, "I'm going back for him." And Rocket knocks her ass out with a stun gun, and he basically says, like, "I'm not going to lose. I can't lose two of my family on the same day."
Yeah.
And closes the door, and he takes off because for all intents and purposes, he doesn't even think that Peter's going to make it out.
Right.
He takes off, but Yondu saves Peter. He dies in the process. And, you know, everyone gets back on the ship, you know, for no worse for wear, essentially, except for Yondu.
I have to say, Peter's eulogy is perhaps my favorite Peter Quill moment. so I guess he kind of was David Hasselhoff. David Hasselhoff kind of was my dad. He's in...
Because Gamora comes in like, "He was your Hasselhoff."
Yeah.
Because she still doesn't know who Hasselhoff is.
Well, what did she call him first? I can't remember what she first time she comes in to get his name, she butchers it completely. Did you tell... what was the story you told me of? Oh, I wish I could remember, but yeah. Mm-hmm. I did like the moment just before, actually, the last moment Yondu and Peter have together before this rescue, when he says, "You kept threatening to eat me," and Yondu's answer is, "That was me being funny."
So we get this moment afterwards, after they do the eulogy, where all the Ravager ships show up, and because they now know the story of why Yondu kept Peter and what Yondu has done on Ego, so they kind of reinstate him in posthumanous.
He gets a
after Yondu gave birth, they gave posthumously they kind of reinstate him as Reaver and give him, or not Reaver, a Ravager funeral,
right?
Which is essentially a fireworks show. But they also get this really funny moment where the only other member of Yondu's crew who makes it is this guy. I don't remember his name. But he goes, "Hey, we had this in the store. We were going to give this to you."
Oh, God.
We picked it up.
You know, they might as well just paused the film. Paused the film and then said, "We'd like to bring someone out from Microsoft to come talk to you." You know what I mean? They just brought someone over like, "Hey, hold on. Excuse me. Bring him out." Right, "Hey, have you heard of the Zune?"
Well, I think I think this was a joke, right? It clearly was a joke.
Certainly felt like one.
Yeah. Did you think they were being serious?
I certainly did.
You are an idiot. This is clearly a joke. Because he goes, everyone on Earth are listening to these. And he busts out a Zune. They don't even make Zunes anymore, Owen. Of course it was a joke.
I don't believe for a second
Fuck,
it was...
man. God damn it.
It is a really funny moment, though.
Yes.
But do you know what I also think this is? I think this is a door to having modern music in the third one.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they'll probably want some different songs by then.
Or at the very least, they're gonna like move on to the 90s at the very least. But yeah, then there's a really great moment because he plays Father and Son by Cat Stevens.
It's a nice scene.
And yeah, because that was actually kind of a thing throughout the movie, is this idea of fathers. I'm not going to say mothers even. There was a big focus on fathers. Because you see it, you kind of see it across the board. You have Peter meeting Ego, his real father. And then by the end you realize that, well, Ego's not really ever been a father figure to him. Yondu is the one who actually raised him.
Well, this is something I'd like to address, because I have had a lot of people say that Yondu's plot in this movie kind of comes out of nowhere. And I don't agree. I think this is established very well in the first film as well. Because I agree. He lets Peter get away with stealing the Infinity Stone in the first one because of this family bond, you know? I think if the first film was about... The theme of the first film very much was about, it's not too late to find your family. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you've done bad things, or if you have, it doesn't matter if you have, crossed lines. It's never too late to go back and to find people and to make genuine connections, right? That to me is the story of the first one, in a way. It expresses it for different people. Gamora has done deeply villainous things, you know? Peter abandoned his mother on her deathbed, you know? Like, that's the one choice that lingers with him, you know? He couldn't face being there when she died. He hasn't done that much wrong, you know, but that's the guilt that he carries. Rocket has turned his back on people. Groot is fine. And Drax has given into revenge. But they've all crossed these lines, but they're willing to come back to that. The theme for Guardians 2, I think, is much more about... I think it can be kind of summed up as sins of the father. Right, and also, like the other way, you don't have to be held to these family connections that you don't want, you know? You don't have to become your parents. Right, because we get it kind of across the board. Like I was saying, is you have Peter with Ego, and then Peter with Yondu, and then even you have Gamora and Nebula with their father, who's Thanos. They're both products of his horrific treatment of them as children. Right. And you can even go so far as you look at Rocket and Groot, because while we said that everyone treats him as a baby, it's definitely Rocket who has the bigger connection. Rocket is his parent. Yeah. Right. And, like, you know, Drax with a punchline through the whole thing. Yeah. I hope they... Like, I don't mind Drax's role in this film, because he does get the best laughs, but I hope by the time 3 rolls around, they found a new plot for him. Right. So, yeah, so you get this final moment where all the Ravager ships are kind of firing off their flares and stuff, and it's a really beautiful scene. Very colorful. We assemble the original Guardians. Yep, and they're playing Father and Son by Cat Stevens. You know, it's that moment where they really hit home the point of the movie.
And yeah, that's kind of it. They don't even really kind of leave it open for a sequel.
No.
There's no real loose end. It just wraps up.
We're just treated to a cornucopia of post-credit scenes.
Yeah, but none of them are actually anything.
Well, there's
funny.
There's the Yondu's arrow one, the guy practicing with that just is what it is. There's the tidbit about the original Guardians of the Galaxy reuniting. Probably the one that's going to be of the most significance, although I doubt there are plans for this. I think they probably just put it in there.
Oh, the Adam Warlock one.
The Adam Warlock casket. The thing about Adam Warlock is he's a big part in the Infinity Gauntlet story. Mm-hmm. I would be very surprised if they're going to try and establish him by Infinity War.
They're not. I think they even came out and said this the other day, is that because everyone was talking about Adam Warlock, and they're like, no, he's not going to be in Infinity.
Like, can you imagine if he played?
He'll most likely be in 3.
Can you imagine if he played the same role he played in that comic in the movie, and he'd only been introduced in fucking Guardians 2? You'd be like, who is this guy?
Yeah, and why is he saving the day?
And he looks just like a sovereign, and you'd be like, weren't these guys the pricks who were all up themselves? You know, you wouldn't have time to distinguish him. And the problem with Adam Warlock as well is that in the context of the Marvel Universe, he's too similar to Vision in a film as a concept. I don't mean as a character, but as an origin, you know? He would just turn out like Vision. And he's also made of an Infinity Stone, which is very similar to Vision. I think they were setting Vision up to be the Adam Warlock character in Infinity War.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So, okay. So that's Guardians Volume 2. All right?
Well, we got the teenage Groot.
The teenage Groot scene.
A lot of people saying he's going to be a teenager next time. He's not. He's going to be back
Groot.
to full size next time, almost certainly. And then the Watcher one, which is just a reference to that ongoing theory.
Yeah. So the next. So here's the thing that's starting to kind of trouble me about Marvel.
Okay.
Unless there's anything else you want to talk about Guardians, real quick.
No, not specifically.
Yeah. Good film. Go out and see it if you haven't. We might have spoiled a shit ton for you, but there's
Splash
so
says,
much
what
in this
about
movie.
late plot twist? I don't know. There is more to the movie. Do we miss something? Well, I'll tell you what, Blash, you tell us what you're thinking of, and we'll get to it.
Yeah.
I will say this, right? I honestly... what I'm looking forward to from this is Guardians 3, not Avengers Infinity War.
Right. So that's what I kind of want to talk about. All we've been hearing ever since they announced Infinity War, every time there's a new Marvel property or character introduced, they go, and he's going to be Infinity War. And he's going to be in Infinity War. The Guardians are going to be in Infinity War. And now there's talk that, the Netflix characters might show up in Infinity War. And...
Can you imagine that? We're going to be the first wave, right at the front, first dead.
Mm-hmm. And so my thought was, at what point is there just too many? Because there's no way you're going to give any of these... these characters that...
Maybe Infinity War 1 and 2. Everybody thinks it's going to be a thing in a sequel. Maybe it's going to be like the way George R.R. Martin wrote those 2 Game of Thrones books. They just take place at the same time. That'd be funny. Half the characters in one movie, half in the other. I quite like that. Blash says, end scenes are showing that the race batteries guys how they create a machine to kill the Guardians. Yeah, that's the Adam Warlock one, the casket. Yeah, it's gonna be Adam Warlock in there. Either that or it's gonna be Adam Levine. That'd be fun.
Our great weapon against you. And she will be loved. No!
I don't mind spending every day. I'd get behind that.
Yeah. Yeah, Blas, they're definitely doing a volume 3. There's no way around it.
Whether you
in fact,
want
I think
it
they
or
announced
not.
2020. I think they announced 2020 is when volume 3 is going to hit.
I want an app where if you put your date of birth in, it tells you what Guardians film is going to be number one. What Marvel film is going to be number one the day you die.
Right. So yeah, I'm actually starting to get kind of worried about the future of Marvel at this point.
You're not excited for Marvel Infinity Characters War?
Yeah, and that's the thing, because like they originally said like, oh, it's going to be Infinity War Part 1 and 2. And now they're saying, no, we're not going to do 1 and 2. We're just going to do 1. So it's like, how?
Do you know how I would like to see the Netflix series crossover with the movies?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be tough because he's dead, but characters can die in comic book movies and come back. We know this, right?
Right.
I'd like to see a movie where one of the villains is like, it's okay, I've got a secret weapon that'll turn the tide of this conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And they open up the box and they've got a gagged David Tennant in there. You know what I mean? That'd be great. And they're trying to control him. They're trying to use him to, because he's the only character in those street level Marvel movies that is movie power quality, right?
Right. So here's how I think they'll do it, and I think they've actually been kind of misleading people a lot about this. Like, oh, they're gonna appear and they're gonna appear. What I think we're gonna get, because when Thanos shows up, it's clearly gonna be like with an invasion, right?
Right.
It's gonna be kind of like, I mean, there's no other way to do this. He's gonna show up with either more Chitauri or the Kree or something, and he's gonna show up, and there's gonna be, New York is gonna be flooded with these aliens again, and what they're gonna do, or the world is gonna be flooded with these aliens, and what they're gonna do is they're gonna do smash cuts. They're gonna go, bam, Wakanda, and you're gonna see flashes of Black Panther fighting these aliens, and they're gonna go, bam, they're gonna flash over to Asgard, and you're gonna see, you know, Thor fighting these things, and they're gonna go, bam, over to Hell's Kitchen, and you're gonna see like a whopping like 5 seconds of the Defenders.
Matt Murdock bleeding internally, laid on the... Speaking of this, actually, just to go back to Guardians for a second, when the seeds of, like, I know it's corny, I know, like, I wouldn't have, I don't mind that you didn't, I'm not saying I wanted to see it, but when the seeds of ego erupted all over the planet and they started attacking that diner and you were on actual present-day Earth, come on, you expected to see, like, Iron Man turn up and just, you know, just a shot, you know, and the Avengers are on the scene, do you know what I mean? I kind of expected to see that. And I'm not saying it's good or bad that we didn't. It's just it would have been an opportunity to remind you that we're in that universe.
Right.
Not that I mind. It's just a thing.
So
have you seen the trailer for the Defenders yet, by the way?
Oh, it's great.
I literally like I literally like made a little squeak noise on that when Matt Murdock walks in the room, you know? And they're all together. It was...
Yeah.
Oh, I'm looking forward to seeing that so much. I've got to watch Iron Fist.
You know what's really funny? Huh?
I've got to watch Iron Fist.
Yeah, you know what's really funny about that trailer? In that trailer alone, there's more action with Iron Fist than there is in the entire fucking show.
Yeah.
But what made me laugh, and everyone's kind of joking around about it, and to be fair, it's bound to happen, right? At what point do the bad guys in the Defender uniform just stay the fuck out of hallways? Like, seriously.
I wonder if they're gonna do. I wonder if when he turns up in the Defenders, the response to the reception of Iron Fist will be visible in the show a little bit. Like, he'll just come in doing a lot of very competent things, you know? Like...
Well, there was that bit in the trailer where he's talking about, like, oh, it'd be great if we team up, and everyone kind of looks at him like, shut the fuck up. Like, you know,
Episode 1 of The Defenders, he walks in front of a bus and just...
Damn.
Who was that guy? And then he's gone. Series 2 of Iron Fist cancelled.
Like, thankfully we have Punisher, you know, or thankfully Elektra's around here. Oh, let's just get Colleen Wing. Let's just have her do it.
The thing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe is I can't have feeling every time we get to the end, every time we get to about episode 10, 9 of one of those Netflix shows, I always think they're going to give into temptation and it's going to be like, hey, I'm Tony Stark, here I am, don't worry, I can mop this up for you. And the rest of the characters don't get a look in for like the final 2 hours, and he's like, don't worry, handled it. You know? And then they just, bye.
Just like,
yeah.
Guys, seen any good movies lately?
They're just catching up on paperwork in the law office, you know? Like...
But no, that is a really good trailer.
It got me more interested in Iron Fist than anything I've heard about Iron Fist did.
Yeah, well, because there's that great shot in the trailer where he meets Luke Cage for the first time.
Right.
And Luke Cage like lays him out, and then he turns around, and just smokes him in the face, and sends Luke Cage down. You know.
Yeah, when he was like, "What's an iron punch?" Yeah. Yeah. It's not
too far away.
Yeah, I've got to get through Iron Fist before it.
What is it? September is coming, or maybe November. Quick, chat. When does the Defenders come out?
I'll look it up. I'll Google it. The Defenders. Defenders of the Earth. The Defenders. It was an old cartoon show from when I was a kid. 18th of August. Oh, that's later than I thought, actually.
Wait, Defenders are coming out in August already?
Yep, apparently.
Holy shit, that's really close.
Oh, apparently that Chinese woman's back. What's her name? Madame Gao?
Yep. Oh, we got a question from the chat. Hey guys, this is from I'm Blazed. Hey guys, did you see any Easter eggs or know of any that are in Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah,
there's a ton.
It's about 30 minutes in. Rocket gets one out, peels off the foil, tucks in. Then he looks at the camera and he goes, delicious!
There's like an hour-long scene where they go on an Easter egg hunt. But not like actual Easter eggs, but like the little plastic ones that you open up and there's like coupons to the nearest like Denny's.
Right.
No, there's you get another cameo from like Howard the Duck. I don't know if you really call it Easter egg, but like Owen said, you actually get to see the Reformation. Excuse me, the
Reformation.
Reformation. The original Guardians of the Galaxy, because these characters that we're seeing in the movies are not the original Guardians of the Galaxy. They're actually very minor characters in the Guardians of the Galaxy mythos. It's only since the movie have they been pushed to the forefront of that group.
Well, they were assembled as a team before the film. They were the most recent version of the Guardians when this film went into development, to be fair.
Right.
But they hadn't been there for very long. Groot, I think, is the most interesting one. Groot was a very, very obscure character before that film. You
get to see the original group together. You get the Adam Warlock thing at the end, which is, I don't know if it's an Easter egg, but
does it count as an Easter egg if nobody knows who Adam Warlock is?
I'd say it would.
It's probably more so, isn't it?
What else is there? Because there are Easter eggs scattered about. I wouldn't be surprised if during the montage of Ego showing the different races that he met, that you actually see something.
There is that scene is wonderful when Ego's got these things. They're like little they're like very large 1960s office chairs. Sorry, Art Deco chairs. But when they rotate, they show scenes of the things that he's done. He creates I think the idea is he's creating them as he needs them because he can create matter out of thin air. And he shows, this is how he tells the story of his life. And later on he shows a new one, which is his quest to mate with all the different species of the universe. And it is just, they almost look like claymation of tiny Kurt Russell getting it on with, there's like 100 little species in there, right? Each with their own little Kurt Russell going at it. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, you know, a Kree and a Skrull. Mind you, I think are they called the Skrull? They're the Skrull, right?
Yeah, there is a Skrull. But...
See, apparently they were supposed to be the aliens that when they used the Chitauri instead, they were supposed to be the Skrull, but the Skrull are tied up in the Fantastic Four license. And it's a real shame because the Kree from Guardians of the Galaxy are very tied up with the Skrull. They are ancient enemies. It's a real pity, actually, that... And it's a real shame and unnecessary as well that Silver Surfer is tied up with the Fantastic Four license too, because he would actually fit in very well in the Guardians of the Galaxy universe. As a serious character surrounded by these silly characters, he would actually fit in really, really well, I think. I don't know what he'd do. You know, he whacked the Hulk with his surfboard once. He could do that again.
Yeah. Apparently there is a Thor Ragnarok Easter egg. During all the jumps when they... Oh,
I'd forgotten about that scene. That's what I mean about how this one isn't really grounded in reality. They've never talked about having to do those hyperspace jumps before, and all of a sudden, like, that's how they travel. You know what I mean? Like, I know that they did...
Right.
It's a new rule that they invented to do that stretchy face gag.
Right. But yeah, apparently they zip past the... It happens really fast, but they zip past like a gladiatorial match that's happening.
Right.
Which is on the same planet from Thor.
I am so interested to find out how... I'm really interested to find out if Thor Ragnarok is going to be a Planet Hulk movie, or if it's just going to have a nod to Planet Hulk that we've pretty much seen all of in the trailer.
I think it's going to be Planet Hulk as Act 2.
I mean, obviously, it's going to be a Thor Ragnarok movie. But if it's going to be... If Hulk's role in this film is going to be the Planet Hulk story, it's going to be very good. If it's going to be almost Planet Hulk, then Hulk joins him, and they go on a big fight for fun, it's not going to be that good.
What I think... Oh, man. Why don't you look this up? Has Mark Ruffalo been confirmed in Thor Ragnarok, or is it just the Hulk?
Well, that'll be interesting. I know that he does the motion capture for the Hulk now. He's the first one to actually do the motion capture for it, rather than just have his face pasted on, so... let's have a look.
IMDb.
It says he's in post-production for it as an actor, but that could just be motion capture.
Right. Because if Mark Ruffalo is in it, then I think we definitely see Planet Hulk. Because how I imagine it goes down, he meets up with Hulk, they fight it out, and blah, blah, and then in quiet moments, like in their cages, a la Gladiator style, Mark Ruffalo's like, hey, I've actually been quietly forming these people into a rebellion.
Well, they've got a difficulty, haven't they? Because around the time of the Planet Hulk story in the comics, Hulk is essentially of normal human intelligence.
Right.
And so when you read the Planet Hulk comics, he's very rarely Bruce Banner in that story, because Hulk can carry the plot. You couldn't do a Planet Hulk story with no Bruce Banner with the Marvel Cinematic Universe Hulk right now.
Right. And you can't... Well, funny you should say that, though, because... well, not that, but it actually does line up with the comics continuity, because...
Yeah, it does.
If you remember during World War... or Planet Hulk... Civil War's going on, and that was their excuse of getting him off the planet, so he wouldn't, because having
Yep.
Hulk on the planet during Civil War would have fucked up everything. How do you write that?
Yeah.
And they actually did the same thing with Civil War 2, where they straight up killed him.
Have you seen that that behind? Well, it's just a little short film of Thor during Civil War because he's not in that film.
With Craig.
Yeah.
He's who I want to see come back.
I want that to be
Infinity
canon.
War. I want to see Craig.
Can I just say, by the way, totally unrelated to the movies, but don't you hate it when they write the Hulk as intelligent? I don't get it.
Kind of.
I don't get why they think that's an interesting... I realize that the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing is a cliche and that it's been done, but the Hulk is one of the few characters that's been doing it long enough that it's allowed to do it. It's been doing it since the 60s, you know?
I think when they do it, it's generally as a way like, okay, we no longer want to write Bruce Banner stories. Let's just write Hulk stories, and we can just eliminate this need to have to draw Bruce Banner, essentially.
Right,
you know?
and the excuse is always that when you look at all the really great Hulk stories, they're not Bruce Banner stories. Mm-hmm. But when you try and think of a good...
Except for the one where he almost gets raped at a YMCA. That's...
Can you think of many Hulk stories where the bit that you remember is Bruce Banner? And I don't say this as so they should do this more. I feel like there are good Bruce Banner stories to tell, and they're not telling them, particularly.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good Bruce Banner stories. The only problem that they exist in the 1970s television show.
Yeah. Why don't they do that? Every time you see it in a movie, the most interesting bit about the Hulk is he's walking alone, and he's in hiding, he's trying not to turn. And yet that's never been the premise of the comic. Ever. Even in, like, the original 60s. I think that's actually
60s. A very big premise of the comic. Up until he becomes, like, a very big member of the Avengers, that's his story.
In the comics, no, because he's still working at the same lab, and Bruce and... Oh, I've read those original comics. That doesn't last that long. I didn't think they play that out that much.
Do you remember the bit...
The TV show did it better.
Do you remember the bit where the Hulk becomes like a low-level gangster and wears the suit?
I don't remember that.
Oh god, what's he called? It's like Mr. Hands or some shit like that.
Oh, is this when he divided off into like 3 separate personalities?
Yeah, like there was gray, and then there was green, and then there was something else. Oh, see, I
Red.
can find it real quick. No, because red came later.
I like the idea of the Hulk as the fugitive. I think that's the best plot for him.
Let's see if I can find it real quick. What is his name? It's a really weird thing. I can't find it right off the bat.
You know what I would think would work as a really good plot for the Hulk? This is how I would do a Hulk movie or a Hulk graphic novel. Mm-hmm. I'd give Bruce Banner a fatal blood disease. I'm sure they've done something similar before. But I'd give Bruce Banner a fatal disease that is killing him pretty quickly, right?
Okay.
Like, he's got like a week to live, 2 weeks maybe, as Bruce Banner. But while ever he's the Hulk, the clock's not ticking.
Oh,
but whenever
okay,
he goes back to being Bruce Banner, his blood toxicity is increasing. And so he's in this thing where whenever he's the Hulk, he's at risk of hurting someone. But whenever he's not the Hulk, he's dying.
Isn't that kind of like the idea of Iron Man, though? Because when he's not wearing the suit, the shit's getting closer to his heart.
Well, yeah, except with Iron Man, he can wear the thing the whole time, and there's no rush, right? And he chooses, and he can just put it on, and he can put a machine on that does it, you know? whenever he needs to. But if someone takes the suit from him, it's a liability. This is... He knows that he can't be the Hulk constantly, because eventually his adrenaline's going to go down, and the Hulk is the stupid Hulk. So the Hulk doesn't know that he's not supposed to change back into Banner. But also, Banner can't endanger people by turning into the Hulk constantly. So whenever he changes back to Banner, he's got to do what needs to be done to make sure that they're trying to find a cure, not waste any time, and get somewhere safe where he can turn back into the Hulk before he loses too much time on his ticking clock. I think that would be an interesting plot. It would need some details working out, you know? But that would just be if every time he was turned into Bruce Banner, and I don't just mean it was like if he turned back into Bruce Banner he had a week again, I mean he's got a week total. If he spends a day as Bruce Banner, changing back into the Hulk stops the clock for a bit, but when he changes back into Banner, he's only got 6 days. You know?
Right.
Just
okay, here we go.
Sorry, yeah.
Oh, sorry. It's Mr. Fix-It.
Joe of course Fix-It. It is.
Yeah.
I'm looking it up
actually,
now. Mr. Fix-It.
Gray Hulk is the original Hulk. Stan Lee wanted the Hulk to be gray, but due to ink problems, Hulk's color was changed to green. That's the only reason why he was green. And this was later explained by saying that the Gray Hulk persona and the Green Hulk persona are actually battling in Bruce Banner's subconscious. The Green Hulk usually wins because he has superior strength. And that's why he's also referred to as Savage Hulk.
And the Grey Hulk is, now in an era of new printing standards, I have returned!
With the utilization of digital coloring, I shall be supreme. Behold, Joe Fix-It forever.
It's pretty funny. I've looked him up. Joe Fix-It or Grey Hulk. So Joe Fix-It is legitimately just the name of the Grey Hulk.
Yeah.
So if this was a totally different personality, why was he so destructive in those early issues?
Because comics, Owen. Because comics.
Right, like he was originally drawn to look like Frankenstein. I've heard Stan Lee say that a lot.
Yeah.
And then it didn't.
Specifically the Boris Karloff.
They switched to green, but he still has the hair pretty much. I don't know. Hulk is weird, isn't it? Because I have a lot of love for... I think Hulk is one of those characters, and it's one of those troublesome Marvel characters. This is one of the worst kind of characters you can be in charge of. Everyone loves it and thinks it's an institution and doesn't want you to change it. Nobody buys the books. Do you know what I mean? Nobody wants you to change the Hulk, but nobody wants to sit and pay for a Hulk story.
Mm-hmm. Well, cause that's the thing. Like, everyone loves Hulk in an Avengers role. They like. This is what people love about the Hulk. They like it when, okay, things are going really bad. None of our plans are working. What do we do? Well, let's just get someone in there to punch something, and that's what he's used as. He always comes in at the last minute, just wrecks shop, and it's like, oh well, hell, all we needed to do was have a big green monster to save the day. People don't like. Here's the fucked up thing about society. People actually don't like intelligent characters to win.
No.
They don't. They prefer dumb, strong, punch you in the face characters to win.
So I want to know how you feel about this.
That's why all the villains are always super geniuses, and all the heroes are always these ragtag group of idiots.
I want to know what you think about this. I'm on the Hulk's basic Wikipedia page, right? Just the plain old Wikipedia page for the Hulk. And it says he has 2 main catchphrases. I'm not going to read you the first one, right? Mm-hmm. It tells you the first one, then it says, and the better known Hulk Smash. So I want you to tell me, without looking at the Wikipedia article, what you think the less well-known catchphrase is. Because I'll tell you right now, I've never heard the Hulk say it.
Oh, really? I was gonna say you wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
No, it's not that. It's it's a hell of a catchphrase. It's catchy. He'll go far with this. It's Hulk is the strongest one there is.
Oh, I have heard that actually.
When?
No, I have heard
I
that,
need
actually.
supporting
Yeah.
evidence for this claim. Hulk is a very
was in,
good boy.
It was in Marvel Ultimate Alliance. When you picked his character, he would often go, "Hulk is the strongest there is."
Is that where they're getting this from? His catchphrase from the one
Yes.
video game. Oh, I don't know. I've never heard him say that. Like, maybe I'm sure in the past he has said it, right? But is it really
I think
worth
it was
listing?
also in the cartoon. Those old cartoons. You know, you had Captain America who throws his mighty shield. I think it was actually in the Hulk song where he goes, "Hulk is the strongest there is," and then it goes on with the rest of the song.
Well, Hulk had a cartoon a little bit later than the Captain America ones. It was much, much better. Do you remember? Had the music dun 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 dun. You know?
Talking about the '90s one.
No. Although that one was pretty good. Hulk is a character they've tried to make work in a lot of adaptations. Yeah.
Let's see here. I'm gonna
Do you
bring
think
it up
maybe
here.
we've got this wrong and the Hulk's just crap?
Oh, I've never really liked the Hulk. I'm not gonna lie.
There's
here
not
we
a lot
go.
to him, is there?
Here's the Hulk cartoon theme.
Well, I'm thoroughly enjoying this.
Huh.
Sounds like Hulk is a brand of soap.
Have you heard some of these other songs?
When
From that
Captain
era?
America throws his mighty shield. This is from the era where they were like, what we'll just do is we'll take pages from comics, draw over them with the worst, cheapest animation supplies we can find, and call it a cartoon, right?
I remember Iron Man's being like really jazzy. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, here it is.
I don't remember that at all.
Oh, we're gonna get tagged on that one.
I'm trying to see if this is... Okay, no, this is the Hulk cartoon I remember. I'm going to send you it as a link.
Okay.
Apparently it's from
Well,
1981.
we-
That is later than I thought. I'm going to post it in the chat like a good boy.
So, I think we should probably start wrapping up here.
Noise!
But we do have one last question in the chat, from our good friend Blas. Wolverine in the last X-Men movie?
I don't think he is. I think Hugh Jackman's bowed out with Logan, hasn't he?
Right, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I said in the chat. I'm like, I don't think so. But you know, they have talked considerably about, you know, recasting, which I think would be a horrible mistake. I think you just let that one go.
You don't recast until you're ready to do a full reboot. And even then, wait a bit.
Yeah.
Like 10
A
years.
reference, maybe? I'll give them that. Like, if, like, you get, like, a quick shot of, like, a wall with, like, 3 claw marks across it or something like that, I'll give them that.
I'll just do it like... Do you remember that episode of Justice League where the universes keep switching?
Mm-hmm.
And Jon Stewart's Green Lantern gets replaced with Hal Jordan. Just
Right.
And they just act like everything's normal. Just do that.
Yeah, he's like, Hal Jordan here, up to speed already, let's do this.
Yeah, one of my favorite Justice League cameos. Who could be a good Wolverine alternative for that? Seth Rogen. There you go.
Honestly, here's my thing. with Wolverine.
He's a
talked about
boring
Logan
character who's been overused. Nobody really cares.
But we talked about Logan afterwards. I think at this point, if you're going to go forward with any sort of Wolverine-type character, I think you just double down on X-23.
Yeah.
Just utilize her.
The thing is, comic book movies have come a long way since Hugh Jackman was cast as Wolverine. And the simple fact is, as a society, as a comic book movie loving society, we've actually come a long way from a culture where Wolverine would head up an X-Men movie now, made today. If there'd been no X-Men movies, but all the other Marvel and DC movies had been made, and we made an X-Men movie today, Wolverine would be in the Drax role.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've moved past the idea that the closest character to Batman is the person you make the hero of the movie.
No, I don't think we're going to see anything substantial with Wolverine in the next X-Men movie.
I like Batman, though.
Okay.
Sorry, Wolverine. I like Wolverine, though. That's what I meant to say. Because I was still thinking about Batman. I like Wolverine. Right. It irritates me that the movies always focus on what is, to me, the least interesting parts of Wolverine. And you know what did it? It was that Wolverine Secret Origin book. That true story of Wolverine's origin that retconned his entire long history. And like, I don't mind making him younger. Like, I totally get that the idea that he's been around since feudal Japan is silly, right? I'm cool with that. I'm perfectly happy with that. Mm-hmm. Keep him young, great. But what they did with that origin thing was they totally rewrote his entire story, cutting out a lot of much, much better plots. And so the movies couldn't... They tend to draw from what's currently canon, usually, or what's the most widely accepted canon, and it really limited what they would draw from, in part. And then, of course, kind of reputation and a kind of a tough guy perception of what's cool for a character limited everything else. And so we didn't get... Where was the Wolverine who'd learned meditation in Japan and had a family? And do you know what I mean? I'd have liked to see that side of Wolverine more than... Mm-hmm. I'd have liked to see the paternal side more than we did, actually.
Right.
But, yeah. Wolverine. He is sometimes awesome. So, should we get out of here? You going to see us out?
Yeah, you have been listening to Those Aren't Biscuits. We've been talking a lot about Guardians of the Galaxy. We've been talking a lot about comics in general. If you like this sort of stuff, come back every week, because we will do it again, and again, and again, and again, because we love it, and we hope you love it too. I have been one of your hosts, Jonathan Cadotte. With me has always been Owen Adams. Where can they find you, buddy?
By going to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Owen Adams. That's pretty much the best place to go.
All right. And you can find me on Twitter, which is @JohnCPerson, or you can go to my blog, which is johncperson.wordpress.com. You can follow the show directly, which is @NotBiscuits on Twitter, or go to our blog, which is notbiscuits.wordpress.com, or check out our Patreon, our Discord channel. Links are below. So, have a good one.
Bye-bye.